Saying ain't so, Dave, but Matt Murray is back with the Leafs for the weekend back-to-back, and Easton Cowan is putting on a show at the World Junior Championships. We'll chat about all that more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Friday to everybody. What's going on, Dave? How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. It's we're days away from the holidays and we're getting a great gift.
Well, I don't know if this is a great gift, but it is a gift nonetheless. It is Matt Murray wrapped
I'm not talking
up.
about Matt Murray. I'm just talking about just a lot of hockey.
Oh, you're talking about just hockey in general. Well, we get that all the time. We don't get that around the holidays.
We get a lot of it though.
We are getting a lot of it.
Nights?
It's true. 3 games, 4 nights. It is a lot of hockey. And look, hopefully the Maple Leafs finish strong because they are like right in the mix of like a President's Trophy race, Dave. Like, I don't know if you've taken a look at the overall standings. Like, yeah, they've been at the top of the Atlantic standings for quite some time, but like they're kind of in the mix also when it comes to the President's Trophy. Like, they've got 42 points in 32 games. Up at the top is the Winnipeg Jets, a team that they're chasing and obviously looking up at, but they play Winnipeg on Monday and they're only 5 points back. And if you look at it in terms of points percentage, 656 points percentage, and that's not that far off. Right now, the Capitals, technically, in terms of points percentage, are number one in the league with a 710. They've got 44 points in 31 games. But, if they could rattle off like a quick little streak here against a couple of, not so great teams, then obviously a big game against Winnipeg, which are always fun. But like tonight, got the Buffalo Sabres. That team's an absolute tire fire, and every team's been able to pick off 2 points against them, which means maybe a scheduled loss. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. Got the Islanders coming up also, another team who's struggled to find wins and find offense this year. And then you're going to have a good matchup and a chance to close that gap between the top dog in the NHL standings in the Winnipeg Jets Monday. And that's the next gen game, which means bet all the overs on Mitch Marner because he seems to always crush on the next gen afternoon starts. But yeah, there is a lot of hockey for the Maple Leafs coming up, and it's going to be interesting. And we get to watch some World Junior prelim games. Like, I don't know if you watched the game last night when Canada played. They ended up winning. Easton Cowan got a hat trick. The Canadian Cowboy, our first round pick from last season, gets a hat trick, and apparently it was the first hat trick that he's ever gotten in junior. He never has had one with the London Knights. He's never gotten a hat trick, and he gets it in a World Junior. It's a prelim game, so I guess it doesn't count, but pretty neat that, a Maple Leafs prospect might be one of, if not the best player on Canada for this upcoming tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty you looked at the roster for this World Junior team, the players who made it, and then the players who didn't make it. This is the stacked roster. So like recent count to not only make it but be in a prominent role going into this one kind of shows the upper echelon season he's having, like just the point streak. And I had no idea he didn't have a hat trick to this point. I mean, he's not known as like a pure goal scorer, so I can kind of guess that, but yeah, to not have a hat trick to this point, a little surprising.
When a kid has 56 straight games in the OHL with a 56 game point streak, you would think at some point he maybe had a hat trick throughout that stretch. But no, he's just Mr. Consistency. That's what it is with Easton Cowan. An assist here, a goal here. A couple times he'll have a 2-point night or a 2-goal night, but he's never scored 3 in one night in the OHL, and his first prelim game for Canada, he gets it done. It's been a while since he's played too, because keep in mind he had that injury prior to going to the camp, and he was held out of most of the showcase camp for Canada, just knowing that he was going to make the team. So it was the first real action he's seen in quite some time. And he nets 3 goals. And I don't know, did you see Gavin McKenna at all? Did you watch any of the highlights or watch the game? So he made that one really nice play where he dipsy doodled around like 3 defenders and then got the puck over to Cowan. Almost was the assist on the hat trick goal, but Cowan ended up scoring later on in the game. But this kid, like, he's good. He's got mitts. He's really, really good, and he's lighting up the dub. He is so small, though. Like, just watching him out there. I know
Yeah.
he's super young. Like, he's what, 16 years old right now? 16,
Yeah.
17 years. Like, he's super young. I think I saw a stat that he's the 8th youngest player to ever make Team Canada.
Crazy.
But he's such a tiny, tiny human. It's kind of funny watching him out there just dangle the hell out of. They're not grown men, but they're like boys that are 2-3 years older than McKenna, maybe even 4 years older than McKenna is. It's kind of funny, but that kid's gonna be good, man. He's a talent.
Yeah, he's gonna be one of those players. Like, we've seen, short, like, small players. I mean, he's got a few more years to grow before evaluators really determine where he's gonna be. But like, this kid looks like a first overall pick caliber player, like, just unreal. And like, especially like, you watch that play. There was that one play where he was trying to set up Cowan, and just like, it's like unbelievable amount, like little to no space, and he's just navigating it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, the concentration he has, and obviously you're talking about, the ability to just show off like the hands. Like, I'll be watching a lot more of this kid the next. I mean, when I saw the roster, and I was like, I wasn't sure if he was going to make it initially, just because Canada's been weary about bringing in younger players. But I mean, you can't deny that talent. You can't deny that talent a chance to play in this tournament.
Actually, he turned 17 today. Today is his 17th birthday,
Wow.
actually. And yeah, he's the projected number 1 overall pick in next year's draft, not even this upcoming draft, next year's draft. And he's going to be a special talent. He's got 60 points in 30 games in the dub this year, averaging 2 points per game. So that's pretty good. Pretty solid. That's after scoring 34 goals last year as a 16-year-old in the league, 15 and 16-year-old. Yeah, he's solid. He's a player. He is a player. He's currently listed though on Elite Prospects as 6 foot. There ain't no way this kid's 6 foot. Like what I saw last night, he was towered over. He looked like a tiny. He looked like he was Nathan Gerby out there next to some of those guys. So I don't know if that's true. That seems like a very generous 6 foot right there. But yeah, anyways, he'll be a lot of fun to watch. And if him and Easton Cowan end up playing on a line together, that could be magic, man. That could be some magic. I'm excited for that. And the World Juniors excited to watch. I think they got another game tomorrow. And the Leafs got a game tonight, though. They're taking on the Buffalo Sabres. And boy, oh boy, things are not looking good in Buffalo right now. Is a game against the Leafs in Buffalo just what the doctor ordered for them? Or can the Leafs continue to make life bad on the Sabres? We'll talk about that and more on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured or if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return. Prize Picks will keep your lineup live. Prize Picks put its members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. You sign up today, you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't, Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinion into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you on a Friday. It's a game day for Toronto. They're taking on the Buffalo Sabres. And boy, oh boy, Dave, it's an absolute mess out there. Like, I almost feel bad for the brethren down the QEW. The Buffalo Sabres have lost 11 in a row. 11 games in a row, Dave. And their last one, maybe the ugliest game yet, which is saying something because after their 10th loss in a row, the owner, Terry Pegula, flies into Montreal for a little pep talk with the team ahead of the game and says, "No, guys, I believe in you. The solution is within the room. No one's going anywhere. Don't expect a trade, a firing, nothing. The team needs to pull themselves out of this themselves." What do? The very next game, 17 seconds in, they get scored on. They lose 6-1 to the Montreal Canadiens after that rah-rah speech from the owner, Dave. It's not a good spot right now for Buffalo.
Yeah, it's so brutal. Like, before they were losing games, like overtime games, there are a lot of close games. Now they're just getting absolutely smashed in games. Like, they got what? Like, there was one of the Patrick Laine goals. There was a video shown of like one of the angles.
Dude,
like
unbelievable goal.
Just you feel sorry for the goalie because, like, what are you gonna do? Like, he puts it in the perfect spot, but like, it's just getting sad over there because, like, what's the like? You don't see, like, I guarantee the players right now are just like, we're like, there's no in like Pegula comes, you said, like, and says, like, it's all in house. You got to figure out ourselves, and the person probably just like, we can't. Like, it's just not a solution in there, right? Like,
well, it is bizarre because, like, it's decent lineup. Like, the players that they have in place individually, it feels like, okay, we should have something here. Like, why don't we take a look at the lineup right now? And you tell me, like, this doesn't look like a last place team. They're in last place in the Eastern Conference right now. I think 31st in the league, only behind Chicago, I believe. That's not what this team looks like, though, when you take a peek at the roster. Like, there's some good players here. You got Jason Zucker, Tage Thompson's having a nice year. Alex Tuck is a point-per-game player this season. You got J.J. Peterka, who's a pretty solid player, Cousins and Jack Quinn, Peyton Krebs, Yuri Kulich, and Zach Benson. That's a young kid line. You got Beck Mallenstein, Ryan McLeod, and Abe Kubel, a sound, fast checking forward line. And then on defense, like Dahlin and Byram, pretty good pair right there. Samuelson and Power, pretty solid pairing right there. And then you've got this Gilbert and Connor Clifton. And then in net, you've got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And then whether it's Devin Levi, James Reimer, the three goalies are who they have. Like, on paper, it doesn't look like a team that should be dead last here, Dave.
Yeah, well, and I guess one thing maybe you can give the team a little bit of a pass on is that Dahlin's been out, right? He's just coming off IR, so I think he's been off for a bit. So maybe, not having your captain and your best defenseman plays a little bit of a role, but like, that's one
best player probably.
Yeah, like, that's one player. I don't like that doesn't fully excuse a 6 and 11 game losing streak.
Oh, look what Toronto did when they lost their best player.
Right, like injuries happen, yeah, and like, they went all in on this team, right? In a lot of ways, like Samuelson, long-term extension, Power, long-term extension, Dahlin, long-term extension,
Cousins, he's got 14 points. They gave him like a $7 million deal.
Yeah, but again, there was an article that Justin Bourne wrote. Actually, I edited it, and just like talking about teams that went different routes in terms of their rebuilds. Buffalo went with the scorched earth. Let's get a bunch of picks, develop, and all that. Then you get a team like Washington that decided, well, we're not going to just bottom out because we can't. We have Ovechkin. Like, we don't have a team that's capable of that. So let's just focus on just getting as much new players that we believe can turn things around a little quicker.
Retool. The
Like a
old
retool.
retool.
And like it's making I wonder if certain teams now start to rethink the model of like the full out like what Chicago's doing. Like the only team I feel like maybe that could potentially see a benefit to doing the whole model is like the San Jose, like what they got going there. But like they're not just rebuilding; they're also bringing in players that are a bit older and like they're kind of retooling a little. Like it's kind of like a hybrid they're doing in San Jose. But like Buffalo hasn't done that. And again, we had that talk about what Kevin Adams, the GM, said about it's hard to get players to come here because we don't have palm trees in Buffalo. It's like we also have some good players that you should be able to say, hey, you get to come play with a Darlene, Logan. You get to play with some decent players here. That's where you're supposed to sell a team on, and it just hasn't worked. Like I do think the issues are like down the middle, like Thompson, Cousins, Coolidge, and McLeod. That's not a bad center, 1-4, but it's not great. Like, and they're also they're in the toughest division in hockey. Let's be honest here. The Atlantic Division is murderer's row, other than Montreal and maybe Detroit. Like Ottawa's been playing so much better. Like, if you look at the standings, the last 10 games, you have like 5 or 6 teams in the like about 5 teams in the Atlantic Division are like 7-3, 7-3, 7-2-1 the last 10 games. It's so hard to compete in this division. I think that's probably playing a role in it too. You got to compete with some really good teams, and they just can't do it.
No, it's a good point. That is definitely a good point by you. So it's hard to win games in this division, but
you
other
should
teams
be able
are
to beat
doing
Montreal. I will say the Montreal loss.
That's it.
That is the most inexcusable one out of them all.
Well, 6-1, you lose 6-1. You give up a hat trick to Patrick Laine. You they went 3 for 6 on the penalty kill. Like just everything went wrong, and it was after a rah speech from the owner, and it's like, boy, that's tough. But now it's like, is it trap game for Toronto? Like, is that where we're at? Is it a trap game type of situation? Because the problem is like Toronto, they haven't played Buffalo terribly of late. Like there was a time a couple of years ago where for whatever reason Buffalo, like they won 5 of 7 matchups between 2022 and 2023, and they always gave Toronto troubles. But Toronto's won the last 3 in a row. They won last week 5-3. And I really think that Toronto, they kind of can't lose this game. Like that would, but for Buffalo, like how desperate are you going to be in this one? Like that's why it's almost a trap game, because it's like if you're Toronto, it could be very easy for them to look past it with another game tomorrow against the Islanders. And if that's the case, maybe Buffalo pops them in the mouth. The thing is, that did happen over the weekend. Buffalo got out to a 2-0 lead, and then Toronto kind of settled in and said, no. We're the better team here. You guys haven't won in 9 straight. We're going to take care of business. Don't worry. So I kind of expect, kind of the same thing to happen again tonight, I guess. Like Toronto should absolutely dominate and win this one. Because to me, the only way Buffalo's going to get themselves out of this funk they're in, I think there's got to be a move of some kind. And it's just not, it hasn't happened yet. And I think maybe after a loss here to Toronto, like think about how many Leaf fans are going to go down. Like, what do you think the split's going to be tonight? Leaf fans, Sabres fans.
Friday night, it's the weekend, right? It's holiday weekend. So some people are probably getting off work early for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a big one. Now, you talk about the Leafs in Buffalo. They're a mixed bag in Buffalo. I've been there, like my first time ever in Buffalo. That was the Ryan O'Reilly hat trick game. Then they also lost 9-3 in Buffalo last year. If I'm not like the thing, it was last year.
So their last 4 games in Buffalo. So last year they won 3-0 on March 30th. The game before that was the 9-3 loss to Buffalo in December. And then the game before that was the 6-3 win. That was the Ryan O'Reilly game in February of 2023. And then before that, they had lost March 13th of 2022, 5-2. So, it mixed bag, but the last couple of years, it's basically been 500 hockey
Yeah.
when the Leafs go down to Buffalo.
I do think though that like if you're at Buffalo, this is like we have to come out with like our best, because you lose at home to Toronto, especially after coming off a brutal loss in Montreal. Man,
Yep.
like that's a fan base that will send messages. I'll start sending messages to the ownership group.
Oh, I was talking to a season ticket holder a week ago, and that was before they had lost to the Montreal Canadiens. And he had told me, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not renewing next year." He's like, "I'm done. This team's awful, and they're not doing anything." And Pagula's, not willing to, spend money, make a coaching change, or get a real goaltender in there. And like fans are starting to turn on the team. It's pretty bad. And like I got a text from our boy Joe DiBiase at Locked On Sabres the other day, and he's the one who pointed out to me. He's like, "Dude, this Sabres Leafs game is going to be the most highest attended road attendance that we've seen in sports history." He's like, "There's going to be like a 90-10 split tonight for Leaf fans and Sabres fans because they just checked out. Like they're apathetic to the team, and it's really unfortunate." But anyways, so that's the game tonight. And then they got the Islanders tomorrow. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll take a look at the game preview for this one also on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NHL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NHL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. My best bet for tonight's Leafs and Sabres game, I like Mitch Marner to record 1+ power play point. You can get that at +165. The Sabres have allowed 7 power play goals in their last 4 games. I think tonight where Toronto could have some power play success. You can make that wager on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf Center podcast, free and available wherever you get your pods and also up on YouTube. So Leafs and Sabres tonight, and then Leafs and Islanders tomorrow. And I don't recall hearing what game Matt Murray will start, but we will see Matt Murray this weekend, Dave. He is expected to be called up by the Toronto Maple Leafs and will play at some point, either tonight in Buffalo or tomorrow against the Islanders. Are you ready for Matt Murray 2.0 in Toronto?
I never thought I would see the day. Like I'm being honest. Like I was so surprised just because, I didn't think he'd be healthy enough to play in the NHL again after what he had been through, like a whole year off.
Yeah,
not playing, like pretty much not playing
hockey.
Injury
again? Was it hip?
Hip. He had hip surgery.
Yeah.
Bilateral. I'm pretty sure it was bilateral hip surgery.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like both hips. It's not easy to recover from that. And then he was with the Marlies at the end of the year. Wasn't very great. Obviously, hasn't played hockey in a year, so kind of understand if he's not playing great in that one game back. And then, then they decide to bring him back on the third goaltender. I'm like, that's interesting. And then, like with the history of Joseph Woll with his stuff, I'm like, we've got a real good chance to see Matt Murray here, don't we?
Oh yeah. Like, I'm surprised it's taken this long, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
especially when Joseph Woll started the year on IR.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't just keep him around after camp. I guess they wanted to get him through waivers right at that point, because it would have been easier then than later in the year where a team is in need of a goaltender. Like, all right, we'll take up a Matt Murray for free at league min.
Right.
So, and yeah, I'm very curious to see how he's. I mean, if you're the Leafs, you are not getting a more motivated goaltender right now than Matt Murray.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It'd be a hell of a story if he comes out and plays really, really well this weekend. Again, I don't know if you saw if he's expected to play tonight in Buffalo or tomorrow against the Islanders. But man, you look at his numbers this year in the American League. He's coming off a shutout. He just got a shutout against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and he won. Didn't he win an NHL championship with that team? If I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
I know he played for Wilkes-Barre. I can't recall if they won a title. I don't think they won a championship, but he played for Wilkes-Barre. Actually, they had won the Stanley Cup that year when he was playing for Wilkes-Barre. So kind of fun for him to get that game and play really well. But you look at his numbers this season. He's played in 8 games in the American League. He's got a 184 goals against and a 931 save percentage. It's pretty good, man. Now I get it. It's the American Hockey League. It's a far different league than the NHL, but it clearly, means that he's healthy. He hasn't, really gotten hurt. There was he missed one game after that injury last week, and then he got in to 2 games since then. He's been fine. So that's why Matt Murray's back with the Maple Leafs. And let's see what the Murdogs got. We'll see what the Murdogs got because, we got 4 to 6 weeks before we see Stolarz back in action. So I think it makes sense to bring up Murray as opposed to the Hildebeest, right? Let the Hildebeest get some games in the minors, and Murray, he can split and basically be a 60-40 tandem with Joseph Woll for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think that just makes more sense personally.
It does make a lot more sense just because I look at a long stretch here that's with you if you're gonna hedge your bet on who can support Joseph Woll the best, you're likely leaning towards Matt Murray. Look, let's not say Dennis Holtby's not good. I just think that
he's played 3 games in the NHL.
You're hedging your bet on the guy who's played a lot more, right? And there was probably a lot of talk with the goaltending coaches about this. I was watching Alberga yesterday. Carter Hutton was on the show. He worked with Matt Murray in the offseason, said this is the best he's looked, in a long time. So yeah, I think this had a lot more to do with they think Matt Murray just gives them a better chance with Stolarz out to have the keep the sustainability of this goaltending tandem. So I don't think they want to push Joseph Woll too much because if you're keeping Hildeby up, you're not playing him as much as you are Matt Murray.
Yeah,
that's my thinking.
Yeah, agreed. Matt Murray, they'll play him a little bit more. There's more trust there. Trust in his play. Injuries, okay, that's one thing. But when he's actually healthy and will be out on the ice, there's definitely more trust there. But the Maple Leafs, it's a back-to-back, so it's Buffalo tonight and then the Islanders tomorrow. And the Islanders have not been a very good team either, Dave. This is a club that's lost 6 of their last 10 games. And they can't keep the puck out of the net, and they can't score. Like New York, the city or the state of New York is in peril right now. Like you've got the whole situation with the Rangers and the fact that they're in an absolute free fall. The Sabres, they've lost 11 in a row, and the Islanders can't win any hockey games or score goals either. It's tough, man. Like hopefully, Toronto, they'll be looking to get the New York sweep with the Islanders coming to town, and then quick trip down to Buffalo for a quick 2 points. But, man, if you're a hockey fan in New York, it's got to be awful right now.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Lamoriello is probably looking for some he's already made kind of the first move of kind of sending a message to the team where he put both Oliver Wahlstrom and Pierre Engvall on waivers. Engvall didn't even get claimed because no one's touching that contract with a 10-foot pole. No. And then Wahlstrom was just like, that was an 11th overall pick.
They just lost to Chicago. Man, they lost to Chicago.
Yeah, like you lost Wahlstrom to Boston. So, yeah, thanks for that one, New York. If Wahlstrom just all of a sudden finds his game in Boston. But, yeah, like those 3 teams, it just feels like they there's a lot of promise with the Islanders because of because of the playoff success that they were having, in the COVID time, and a little after that. New York because they won the President's Trophy last year, and then Buffalo was like, oh, this is a good young team up and coming. All three of them it's the worst market to have this sort of struggles because everything is magnified. You cannot hide in those markets when you're struggling. So yeah, it's if you're the Leafs with this Stolarz injury, you're kind of counting your blessings a little bit that these are the teams you're going up against. You do have Winnipeg coming up, which is not easy.
It's a good game to get Matt Murray into one of them, right?
Yes,
it is a good game for that. Yeah. What do you think? You think they come out of the weekend with a full 4 points?
Oh, really good chance.
Yeah,
this is their best chance. If 2 reasons. One, their offense is getting better. They had the 5 goals against Buffalo. Oh, let's see how they do on the road.
Yeah,
that road game in Buffalo. But I think that should
Dallas.
Be fine.
They played in Dallas. Dallas was a road game,
right? So, I'm hoping that what happened in Dallas they can carry over in terms of the goals. Maybe not so much to getting outshot really badly.
Yeah,
right. Kind of like last time.
The final result from second period onward.
Yes, let's see more of that. So the Leafs are in a good spot despite all the injuries and all the other noise.
And I'll say this, I feel more confident going into this weekend saying, these Leafs should be able to win these games. I feel more confident with Craig Berube behind the bench about getting the team ready to go for these games and not looking ahead to Christmas than I would have with Sheldon Keefe. Yeah. That also helps us feeling somewhat good about him. All right, buddy. Should be fun games to watch. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at @D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.